Some French princes that became old dirty bastards. Spent half their life off their nut getting plastered. 2 decades later after they first met, now chatting shit on your TV set. It's Scotty Motty, Scotty Motty, Scotty Motty, Scotty Motty, Scotty Motty.
I'll crack off.
You'll do what? You'll do no such thing, my son.
It's the Manc Cave, man. What do you do in your man cave?
I haven't got a man cave. I haven't. You know what? Right, in our house.
Are we starting now?
Yeah, we have started. We've started. This is started. In my house, right, in our bedroom, there's like a bit at the back, and it's not even a man. It's not even like a proper man cave. It's like a little bit of the room that's, you know, to the side. I thought,
Yeah.
oh, I'll have that as like I can film in there and stuff. No, that's all. That's being used for something else. So I don't have a man cave at all.
Well, you don't need to worry anymore. And if you haven't got a man cave out there or a Manc Cave, now you have, because we've created one. We've merged Manc and Cave and done Manc Cave. The idea.
Ah, right.
You get it now, yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway, so the reason I came up with this fantastic pun and idea for a show on Scotty and Motty, subscribe and like if you haven't already, is because we did a show 2 weeks ago when we were celebrating his 10-year anniversary of not drinking, and loads of people got in touch, and every single week pretty much didn't they? What are you laughing for?
That entire sentence was peak. That was just you. That
Peak?
was you. That was you.
What do you mean, Pete?
Like you just went. I came up with this idea because last week when he was celebrating him not drinking with almost like annoyance in your voice,
this is my man
a lot
cave.
of people liked it for some reason.
Well,
so, yeah.
Well, I think you'll find it's
love
my idea for you to get sober.
It was, yeah.
Amongst many other people.
Do you know what? Right. To be fair, right, it was your idea to do Scotty and Motty.
Was it?
You messaged me.
I told you to do it.
You said, why don't join lockdown? You said, why don't you do a channel on your own?
Yeah, so I give you credit for that.
No. I said, let's do one together. And you said, all right, then let's make that happen. So I'll give you that. I got my master's degree because of you.
Nice.
Because you said you was going to go and do masters.
Yep, didn't do it.
And I thought, fucking hell, I'll let anyone in uni. If he can get one, I can fucking get one. So I started looking into it because I said to you, I can't do masters, and you went, why not? I said, I ain't got the dough, and you went, you fucking idiot. You get it paid for you. Like, you have to pay it back, but you've not got to come up with all the money to pay up front. So I was like, oh, why not? So I did it. And sobriety, you've helped me through my sobriety, bro.
I'm a good friend, really.
You are a good friend.
You need to up your game. Actually, that's a lie because he's been there as much for me as I have for him. And again, before him interrupting me, the reason for this, you're going to do it again. You're very bad. You know the amount of comments we get, Scotty, you should do your own video because you just waffle over me all the time.
Yeah, but them comments,
see what I mean?
Them comments are literally from your burner accounts.
I wish that was true because that sounds like something that I probably would have done, but I didn't. Anyway, so the idea was that we do get a lot. This is serious content, man. Obviously, Manc Cave will peaks and troughs, but the reason is we do get a lot of emails on a weekly basis for people that are going through lots of shit. And obviously, me and Jay, as you've seen on Agony Uncles, don't have any professional advice that we can give, although we have experiences of being decades long. Dickheads with decades long. That work?
Yeah, like dickheads with decades long.
We've had a messy life. So what we wanted to do is try and talk about our own experiences and get you involved in a Manc Cave. Obviously, this is more skewed towards the men, but I'd like women to get involved as well. I'm not alienating anyone, but I don't want to be a person who speaks on female issues because I am not one, and I wouldn't like to face the wrath.
You could speak on female issues from a male perspective.
No, I'm just not going to speak on any female issues. I think that's wise.
Fair.
Anyway, so I wanted to start off with this question.
Yep.
What does it mean to you to be a man? What is a man?
It's a very good question, that. I think. What does it mean to be a man?
Has that changed? Has your idea of what being a man is in 2024 changed from when you were growing up?
I think when I was younger, you still had that idea that a man is like the hunter-gatherer, the protector, there was that sort of alpha male ethos that I think we all grew up with in the areas we
Brennan,
grew up with.
mum stays at home.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas now I think that's changed a lot. And it is more, I think it's less about you doing those what are viewed as traditional male sort of roles of you earn all the money or the majority of the money. Your word is the law in the house or whatever. You settle disputes with violence or things like that. I think it's all changed. I think on a domestic level it's changed, and I think from in our house, can I speak of my house, it is, my missus works, I work. Yeah. My opinion is probably less valid than anyone else's in the house, including the cats. But I'm all right with that. And I think in terms of, that whole alpha male thing and how we deal with issues, I think you can deal with things now by being a lot more open and vulnerable than you perhaps were when we were growing up. Yeah. And I ain't got a problem with that.
You don't think there's any sort of negatives towards the sort of change in dynamics in this sort of alpha male? I'm talking probably more on a sort of competitive level. Do you think we're sort of like, is there healthy masculinity and toxic masculinity?
I think the whole masculine argument has been hijacked by a lot of people who are really bad examples and are the sort of people that you shouldn't be listening to. Yet for many people, or for many sort of young lads in particular who feel a little bit marginalised, who feel voiceless, they've attached themselves, or they started following people that I don't think are good examples. So when I'm talking about this, and I'm talking about people like Andrew Tate, I don't mean Andy Tate who's on Devils, I mean Andrew Tate, even Jordan Peterson. I think his views, I know he's a very intelligent man, so he says anyway. I don't think those are good examples, and I think they sort of had this idea of masculinity and what it means to be a man and alpha male stuff, and you should do this and you shouldn't listen to all this and you should, take charge of that, and women should do as a told kind of thing, which I think is just completely wrong.
Right. So in that sense, and I'm just not defending Peterson or Andrew Tate. I'm just purely to get your definition. What is masculinity then? Because when what you started with there is that the conversation was that the scales have somewhat become a little bit more balanced regarding what gender roles are in the house and in the workplace. And I'm pretty sure that lots of women who are watching could get in touch and say that isn't the case, but it's changing if anything. So where and what does that actually mean for being a man compared to a woman? What is masculinity? If you haven't got them sort of, there were societal norms, weren't there, that we grew up with, but now it's all changed. So how do you view being a man nowadays? Like, what is it? Is there any difference?
For me, there's not
like a wrong answer.
I'm not at pains talking about myself. For me, it's about being a good role model.
How's that different to being a woman?
No, for me, a role model to my son, for starters. To my son and my daughters, but in a way that, as a man, you can still have that protective element when it comes towards women. You've got daughters, you know what that's like, the way you've very protective. I think there's an element of that. I think there's an element of, and again, a lot of this comes down, you can say the same thing about women as well, but I think from a male perspective, showing that loyalty, showing that ability to be strong. And when I say strong, I don't mean just, sticking your fist through someone's jaw. I mean mentally strong as well, or even to the point where if you are struggling, being able to be honest, that kind of role model. And there is still an element of that protector vibe. Yeah. Still get that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
don't think it's all bad to have that of, that's my son or that's my daughter and I'm going to look out for her, and if anything happens to her, I ain't going to have it.
It's being able to sort of filter it, isn't it? Or like, being able to bring out the beast when it's needed, rather than sort of walk around with your, barrel chest out, ready to 10-bell someone every time.
I've never been a scrapper, Scotty. I mean, you used to go out back in the day. Jesus, well, it's couldn't find me a brown paper bag. I mean, didn't stop me trying. No. Didn't never ended well.
But that's interesting though. Let's talk about that. So, right, you're not a fighter.
No, right? I'm not going to pretend I am.
Right. But you tried to be. Now, is that because you were levered, or is that because that felt like the more normal sort of reaction to something?
You remember, I used to wear as a badge of honour.
Yeah.
Bad clothes, yeah. I can't even say I used to borrow them off you because they never would have fit. So
and they wouldn't have been bad clothes.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of things I've got on you. Hair and taste is two of them.
So I used to wear it as a badge of honour, like even getting my head kicked in if I'd not walked.
It was a badge of honour.
Yeah,
because it's bruised.
I remember once getting my head kicked in once, and it was all my own doing. And I was in a I got in someone else's taxi outside this pub that he's been flexed in, and the taxi went up this hill. The pub was at the bottom of a hill, and it went up this hill. And as it went up the hill, there's these lads whose taxi it was. He was shouting at me, and I told the taxi driver to stop, and I ran down the hill to fight these lads. Got battered, but in my head I was like, I showed them sort of thing. When he should have stayed in the taxi and got home.
Like Jack and Jill.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous, and I was like, I remember all my chin, sorry, and was all cut. It was just stupidness in my eye. But I used to think, yeah, you know what I mean. Like, I was almost proud of that, and it's dumb. It's dumb. Like, there's nothing to be proud of. It was stupid, and it's not like I went down there and kicked their heads in. It was the opposite happened.
How do you see, like, nowadays? You know, when it's difficult because we don't sort of drink with 20-year-olds or hang around with them. Like, but is that still there? That sort of hierarchy of at the alpha male within a male sort of context, just like in male groups and stuff like that. And how is that? Because have you seen I think it was on Tambourine, the Chris Rock special. It might be in the Outrage one that he did more recently, where he was talking about bullying in schools. Yeah. And he was saying that bullying was a good thing because it made him more resilient now as he's older. Is there any sort of truth in that, do you think? That sort of, I think it might be from, you say Churchill all the time, so I'm going to quote from the Bible. Steel sharpens steel. That might not be from the Bible. I think it's from a hip-hop song.
Well, you know one of the same.
Tupac was a prophet.
Yeah.
You know, the book of Tupac, the book of Pac. And Christian fans are going to get in touch, aren't they?
If they've any sense. Does bullying mould you? Was that?
Yeah, no, but not. Yeah, is there any argument to be said that we're too vulnerable now? This is my view. I'm just starting a conversation.
And I've seen it like in Milan when he's getting coached or whatever, and the coach is shouting, and Mrs. will be like, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, within reason, obviously. Like, I think you can get a bit like overly precious and sensitive in certain degrees. Yeah. And I think, there is, I know we hate this term, but you do need to learn some traits around being tough, being able to be resilient.
Because the world isn't.
Yeah. So there's no point in pretending. I'm not one of these who thinks, you should just teach kids that everything's going to be all right all the time, and everyone should be nice to everyone all the time, and everyone's always going to be nice to you, and it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows, because it ain't. On the flip side, I don't mean you should be going around smashing kids up or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like bashing kids up. Sorry. I mean, like, there's a limit. So I understand the argument of like, having adversity or even getting bullied can build you, but I don't think it's necessarily true. I think there's a way to build character without it escalating into being bullied.
What's the way you build character from not having to face sort of obstacles? And just looking at my own personal life and your journey, do you not think every problem that you face, whether it's self-inflicted or like society's inflicted, has sort of made you into who you are today? And what does that mean for generations that haven't got that? That there were people in school who were very pampered or went to middle class schools and stuff like that. When they sort of hit hard times because they haven't gone through that, is there any argument there?
I get that, but then that for me is a bit different from bullying. Like, I've been through some stuff, and let's have it right. The friends that I grew up with in Partington, when I first met some of them, we had a fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, one of them I had a fight with on the first day I met him.
Did you win?
Something racist. It was one of those where I threw a dig and he didn't want to fight anymore. We were only about 10 or not even, something like that. Or maybe, I can't remember, something like that. But I think that you can build character and you can do that sort of stuff and that toughness and adversity and resilience and all that without necessarily crossing the line into bullying. Right. I think you can go through struggle, or you can know what it's like to, have to show a bit of that sort of grit and determination to get through a difficult situation or a difficult moment without it being a case of you have to be bullied to learn that. Do you know what I mean? I've got lots of friends who've never been bullied in their life, and I think to be honest, have I really been bullied? Probably not. But I've still learned resilience. I've still had enough adversity in my life. I've still grew up in a council estate which was quite tough, and some people may say, that was a bit too rough and ready for my liking, but I wouldn't say it was bullying, but I learned a lot of the traits that stood me in good stead.
That's the thing that I was found.
Maybe a few bad ones.
Yeah.
As well, to be brutally honest.
I'm just to clarify, I wasn't advocating bullying as a good thing.
No,
I was just,
no,
just a
you weren't.
conversation.
But you were saying about the Chris Rock thing, and I get that. Some people, it can go both ways though. Some of the worst people you'll meet in the world have been bullied.
Yeah.
And that's why they've come out the way they have. Do you know what I mean? And I'm a big believer in the sort of the parental influence. I think that matters.
Yeah, I agree.
I do. I think that there's a. I'm not saying that anyone who hasn't got, people that don't have a, good parental influence can't be great people, because obviously they can. That's not what I'm saying. But I feel like it touched me having kids. It made me get my act together. That's the one defining factor that made me get. Lots of other little things.
The responsibility, I think, that sort of like kicks you in the ass, doesn't it? When you, as a man, anyway.
Yeah, and it was like, I'm not just going to fuck my life up now. I'm going to fuck theirs up. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I cannot have that. So I've got this responsibility, and I'm going to take it seriously. And I think I have. And I might fall short. We both probably do as parents, but we try our best. And I think no one can ever look at either of us and say we haven't always tried.
I think for me, I think it's the awareness that you've got that responsibility.
Yeah.
Everyone fails as a parent, I think, to one extent or another, but to be aware that you actually have that responsibility, because some people don't. And I think that's one thing. I look around at some of the people I know who are absent fathers who have kids and have nothing to do with their lives. I'm like, that for me is the opposite of them, and that's cowardly. You've got that sort of, you brought these people into the world, these kids and stuff. You should be looking out for them.
Yeah, I mean, and I've got loads of experience about absent fathers, and I can tell you a few stories that you've heard, Arthur. But I think that for me, the idea of being like that, it knocks me sick.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I know what I've got to do, and I'm glad to do it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think going back to your original question about like masculinity, I can teach him some masculine traits, and he can be a man. He can be he's a boy now, he's only 9. And he can stand up for himself, and he can protect women. And he can be someone who sort of has those traits without it being toxic.
How do you think women view masculinity? Do you think there's a change in terms of, we started the show with like looking at the improving balance between gender roles, but do you think there's a section of society where women still like that bread earner, alpha male sort of, like, I want to be taken care of sort of way, not in a gold digger stance, I just mean like sort of that's something they seek out. And with that in mind, is it not a case there for the version of masculinity that people like Andrew Tate, they're doing it to the extremes, Jordan Peterson, for them in the world? Because whilst me and you can disagree with them on their opinions of what being a man is, like, they have got a huge audience. So I suppose what I'm trying to ask is there a crisis?
But I think their audience, I never view masculinity as putting others down. And I think the issue I have with them is their whole sort of persona seems to be based on putting people down.
Right.
Jordan Peterson, if you look at a lot of what he says, where he goes like racism, and he talks about certain aspects, and you think, hang on a minute, you're just putting one group down.
Right.
When Andrew Tate talks about women, he's putting them down.
Right, okay.
And I don't think that is necessarily...
No, I get that.
And that's my issue I have with them two characters in particular.
I get that, and I wasn't talking about their views on women or people of different races, but those two people, and there's lots more sort of speakers out there that spin a similar sort of line, have a huge following. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So if there's an audience for it, like, is there not a crisis of what being a man's supposed to be?
I think there's a lot of people out there who probably do feel lost.
Is that lost though? That's what I'm saying. Is that lost if they've got some people have got that version of what being a man is? Is that lost? Or is that considers a baby holding on to views that we would have looked up to when we were kids? Is there not an argument for that? Because they would say it's traditional ideals, wouldn't they?
See, that's where I disagree, though. Like, they would. When I look at what they do, I just think it's everything against what I was brought with. Yeah. You don't act like that.
I'm the same.
That wasn't being a man to me. That was the opposite of it.
Right. Okay.
That was being, something that, for the legal purposes, I won't say out loud until convictions have been, upheld or whatever. But like, it wasn't about being a man. If you're acting like that, it was being something else.
But it's not so much. I'm not talking about them. I'm saying that they've got an audience. Yeah. So there's large.
So you're saying there's people that might look at it.
So what I'm saying to you is you've got a large section of men. who follow these characters,
Yeah.
you refer to them as lost.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm what makes them lost? Like
I think they're
define
lost or voiceless, however you want to say it. And I think a lot of it is sort of this perception that we hear it all the time. If you're and it's used, I'm not just saying it, I don't want to make this about race, but I think sometimes it comes into this argument with certain people. If you're I don't know, I think Andrew would say it's even mixed race, but there's this sort of, if you're a young white male, you're going to be treated differently, or your voice isn't going to be heard, or everyone else is going to be listened above you, and wokeism has gone mad and all this nonsense. And I think that can get into your head.
Yeah.
Like, it can. People can maybe feel marginalised in the same way that Muslims might feel marginalised because they walk past the newsstand and see headline after headline that says negative things about people of their religion.
Right, okay.
There might be people who are a certain demographic that might be the most populous demographic in this country, but somehow feel marginalised. And I think we saw some of that with the riots. I'm not saying most of it was, because I think most of it was just racist thugs who hadn't got a brain cell between them. And I was laughing my head off when they got the sentences they got handed to them. I couldn't give a toss. I think they deserve it. But there is an element of people who feel angry and marginalised and less than, or treated less than other people of other races who looked at that and would go, they might not even been part of it, but they might have looked at it and sympathised with the people that were doing those riots or that were taking part in those riots.
Right, okay, so, and that's on a racist thing, but are you saying that these might be part of the same sort of group that fall on the line?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, listen, you can be any colour and feel like you're not being heard, or you can be any colour and feel like, as a man, that your voice isn't being heard. I just think we see a lot more of it from a certain demographic, and that demographic tends to hear that argument though. I'm a white heterosexual male, no one's going to listen to me.
Right,
that kind of argument,
yeah.
which I think is flawed. But there's obviously a lot of people that feel like that. You hear it quite a lot from a lot of different, not even from different parts of Britain, but from different countries as well. Why is the alt-right so popular in certain countries? Even in this country, to a certain degree, there is an element of tapping into that. Why? Why do people who probably do have a lot, going for them in terms of opportunities, why do they feel like they don't? What is all that?
Do you think it's that part of I need a tribe to belong to sort of thing? Because we're huge football fans, as you'll know when you've seen us on various channels, and it is nice to belong to a group who've got very similar sort of issues, although we disunited in terms of like Ten Hag and stuff. But do you think there is that? Because there is a lot of lonely people out there that they find it easy to sort of, what's your similarity?
I see it in all different aspects of life. A big reason recovery works for people is because they become part of the program, the 12-step program, or they find fellowship, not just the meetings, but outside of the meetings, people, like-minded people. So you don't hang around with people who are using and drinking anymore. You hang around with people that aren't. You mentioned football. Me and you became mates based on not just football. We shared interests with music. We loved our music, similar music, and obviously united and stuff. And that's why when we met each other, working about it, we gravitated towards each other because of these different traits. And I think that's the same for my son makes friends up because of gaming and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or he's got his football team, he's got mates in school, whatever. But also gaming. There's all different ways and means where you can relate to people and find that bond and feel part of a group. And you're right, maybe it is sort of tribal.
If I was to ask you, and then you can ask me, who would be a role model of a man? Well, it can be fictional, it can be somebody in the public eye, could be somebody who would be like, there's a man.
A man?
Like yeah, I don't mean just choose someone with a penis, like who would be like, that's like what embodies the ideals about what you see as being like, that's masculinity. If my son isn't growing up like me, I want my son to grow up like that person.
I think there's a few people that I respect and I admire, and just in terms of my son, you mentioned my son there, like his boxing coach is someone I've got a lot of time for. Yeah, he's a man who's sort of the way he runs the gym. I like him. He's fair, but he's stern with him, but he's funny, and you can respect him and what he's doing as well. He's doing it from nothing basically. You know what I mean? The subs that they paid him barely covers the electric. And I think someone like that, it's difficult. because there's no one that sort of springs to mind. I've got friends like you that I respect. I've got friends that, you know, like my other friends who I respect and who I look up to. But there's no one who I automatically go, there's a man that...
Isn't that telling, though? That you can't think of... So obviously, you know, it's great we mentioned the boxing coach, but isn't that telling that, you know, there isn't one, because there isn't one version of what being a man is? Do you know what I mean? And everyone comes with their own flaws. Like, I was asking myself this question on the way in here, and I was like, who would I actually choose? Is there anyone sort of famous? And then I was going to the obvious characters like Tony Soprano, and I'm like thinking he's not really the sort of, you know, do you know what I mean? But yeah, he's still got that. He's got family ideals, but then they are also massively flawed. And
you respect people for different things, and I wouldn't necessarily think I respect him as a man's man or whatever. I know you're not saying that, but you respect someone who might have, you know, there's people in recovery that I respect. There's people that have been around and have got clean and have stayed clean and I look up to in terms of, you know, that's inspiring and that helps keep me clean. There's people who have made a success of their careers creatively, who you go, oh, you know what, not even made a success, but there's people creatively that you admire, you know, writers or singers or directors or whatever. There's sportsmen that you admire. Do you know what I mean? I don't necessarily think it's one of those where it's like, oh, he's a man that I respect because he's a man. Do you know what I mean? I respect him because he's very good at directing, or he's very good at football, or he's very good at singing, or he's, you know, whatever. So it's difficult to answer that because I've never really thought about it like that before. Yeah. And I think it's.
I just think it's quite telling because there isn't one person. I don't think it just shows that there isn't a Superman, you know, to use the example. But there isn't someone that I like. He's got all his shit together. Everything that he does, you know, fits all my ideals. He's X, Y, and Z. Because ultimately, all men are very different, but we share like genes or like anatomy. That's pretty much it. But we're all sort of different.
It's mad because I was thinking about this before about Russell Brand. When I was younger, you know, I had Bucky Wook. I bought his first book, Bucky Wook and Bucky Wook.
Yeah, I got Revolution or whatever.
And I don't think I'm breaking his anonymity here because everyone knows he was in recovery or he's in recovery. I remember being at a meeting when he was there and he spoke very well. Very entertaining, very insightful. Had a good aura about him, if I can use that word. And now I look at him now, I just feel like massively disappointed in the way what he's become. No, I'm not talking about the accusations against him. That's one thing. Well, I mean, obviously they're not great, but I don't, you know. Even if you said the accusations, let's say, for example, I'm not saying it is the case, but let's say, for example, you put that to one side and say he hasn't been convicted. Okay, let's just put that in a box or put a pin in it for now. Like he might have done all that. I'm not saying he's lying, but even if you ignore that and look at what he's become in terms of this sort of right-wing figure who's palling around with Marjorie Taylor Greene and sharing a stage with Tucker Carlson and
embrace Christianity.
But and I just think, what happened to you, man? And there's nothing wrong with, you know, and even the embracing Christianity thing. Is that true? Has he had that epiphany where he's suddenly become a devout Christian? And it's funny how this tied in with all the accusations that are against him, and all of a sudden he's become so far right, he's almost like a pin-up for the right-wing movement. And it's weird because this was a guy who was liberal, he was left-wing, he was a bit
like Labour called on him, didn't they, in the last minute, the last hour of the because he said he wasn't going to vote.
Well, he didn't until he interviewed Ed Miliband, and then he decided he was going to vote for him. And he was someone who I always thought was quite spiritual and liberal. And then obviously these accusations, if they are true, and I don't know if they are or not, but that flies in the face of all that. But just his persona now is someone I was looking at, I think, what the fuck happened to you, man? Yeah, you just. You know, I mean,
we could go through a lot of people, especially over the last sort of 10 years, with stories of men that you've looked up to, and then stories that come out later on, and you're like, oof.
Yeah,
disappointed.
There's
hundreds of them.
And it's not even the ones that, you know, accusations or whatever, or certain things they've done wrong that come out. It's when you see people that you respect and have so much promise enough, you know, you look up to, and then it turns out that they just sell out.
Yeah.
There's so many people that do that. Do you know what I mean? They take the easy option, or the selfish option, or the greedy option, or the ignorant option, and you think, what happened to you, man? Do you know
Money
what I mean?
talks,
it does, doesn't it? And it's sad because there's quite a few people like that, and I think that it sort of does make you a bit cynical at times.
Certainly does. Right, that's been the first episode of the Manc Cave, and a lot of Jay's definition of what being a man is and man isn't. 3 words to describe a man. Penis, left testicle, right testicle. No.
I'd say 3 words to describe a man.
Yeah.
Trying his best.
There we go. I'd love to get your comments to get involved in the chat. We'll be back with another one of the Manc Caves. Very cheery one. We've had lots of people get in touch about depression, so we're going to be talking about that. I've been Scotty, that's been Motty. Subscribe, like, comment. I shall see you soon.